everybody, here we are again back in my workshop. My name's Colwin Way and this is bringing the skill centre to your home. So today, question and answer session, we're back to turning on Thursday, but Q&A today. We are going to do a little bit of turning for you just to help answer some of the questions. It has to happen, you know. It's a lovely sunny day, hence the legs. You've seen them before, so don't worry too much. Okay, so let's start. I've got 3 pages of questions, so thanks everybody for your support. I've also got some unusual questions. We'll do our best to answer as many as we can. I have batted some forward to Craig for tomorrow's woodworking session, so on Wednesday 4 o'clock with Craig Steele in the workshop. So the bandsaw questions, so who are they from? So for Creative Constructions UK, your bandsaw question is going to be batted to him. If you can't watch it at 4 o'clock tomorrow, then it'll be the same as this one. They'll be played back in the evening as well on Instagram TV, YouTube, all those regular things. Okay, so have a look there. And one other question that I batted forward for tomorrow to Craig, was it the best, the table saw for a beginner wood turner? It's his field of expertise, so I'm going to let him answer that one. So that's for Ethan, okay? But apart from that, hopefully I'm going to go through everything for you. So I'm going to get rid of one page quickly. I've seen the pages with a couple of questions on it. This one is from Sleeping Dog. Sleeping Dog, you won't mind. I've scribbled most of your question out only because I wanted to get to the bit where I can read out without rambling too much. So it says, might you have any comments on using internal grips for the pin jaws or of the pin jaws when you want to run the spindle through the headstock of the lathe? So the query here is, we're making a product or project which is fairly delicate, and if you grip too hard it can damage the inside of the pin jaws. And I'll get a set to show you. We'll get a jaw. Finner, come in a bit closer. Sorry, Finn's behind the camera, by the way, not Charlie today. Finley's behind today. And Finley's been here from the start, so he knows what he's doing. So ask questions to Finley and he'll ask them through or onto me. So there's a pin jaw. Okay, there's a pin jaw. So as you can see here, they've got quite a sharp edge on the inside, and you're absolutely right. Yeah, they will. If you hold too tightly with those, they will damage a little bit. So I had a look at the several sets of jaws. Now, you also suggested about pen jaws, but pen jaws don't let you run through the chuck. They've got the section at the bottom that stops you from doing that. So there are a couple of, there's a couple of jaws you could use, but however, I did come up with an issue with one of them. So if I put the pen jaw away, so my first draw I thought, okay, go back to my old friendly engineering jaws. So you've all seen me use those. Now the trouble with those is they've got a serrated inside. They'll do the same thing as your those other jaws we were just looking at. They've got a sharp edge on the interior, so they won't work. They're great for holding small things, but still they won't quite work. Then I thought, well, okay, the most logical suggestion then would be soft jaws. These lovely jaws which you sort of shape yourself to the project that you're doing. However, another issue, there is a very slight, about a 2mm lip. Now, you probably won't see that with the camera, but there's a 2mm lip inside there where the mounting jaws protrude out further. So again, for through turning, that's no good. So you've got one option left. And it's a great option, I'll be honest with you, I use them all the time. Wood plate jaws. Okay, so there's a wood plate jaw. So this is the actual wood plate itself. So when you buy the jaw, you buy that bit. You then attach your own wooden quadrants. Now you can make those close right down to nothing if you want to, or do what I've done here. I've drilled through. So I've had all 4 quadrants on the chuck. I then drilled through with the tailstock, so I had a nice regular hole in the middle. Now you could do that the same size as the internal part of the jaw there, or you can make it your own size or whatever. And also you can make it your own depth. It's entirely up to you what depth you make that jaw. I tend to go with machined, plywood. So rather than timber itself, use the engineered timbers like ply. So that'd be the perfect idea for those projects that you're making. Make them a little bit deeper than that and make it to suit your size. So I hope that's helped. So not the pin jaws, go for the wood plate. Great set of jaws there. Let me give you part numbers. I've done as much. Look in here, I think I've got the part numbers for all of these bits. Wood plate jaws, have a look online. I've done a video online as well of me setting these up. So your wood plate jaws, the part number for those, and I'd go for the 150 mils rather than the hundreds, but you can have a look at both. Part number is 910405. Like I say, have a look at the video online on the Axminster site. You'll see me making a setup for you. You might get some other ideas from that as well. Okay, so next one. So this is from Eddie. So hi Colwin, can you tell me, are the belts for the Axminster sharpener the same as the Sorby Pro Edge? Are they the same as the Axminster Ultimate Edge in terms of size? Yes, they are. So they're 785 by 50 mil. So yes, exactly the same size. You'll have no problem there. Okay, so this one's from Mike. Mike Jeffrey says, hi Colwin, I notice your lathe always stops in a certain place and does not seem to matter which chuck is put on. Absolutely, it's always going to stop, and which is a real issue when it comes to photography as well. I'm trying to photograph a certain thing or a certain position. It's always going to do that. Most lathes will. It's belts. It's the memory that's in your belt. It's nothing else. If I slacken the belt off, it stops happening. So it'll stop wherever you want it to when the belt isn't in tension. As soon as you put the belt back into tension, it'll then move back to that same position every single time. Just the way it is. You don't find that very often when it comes to mechanical variable speeds, those intertwined ones. It just doesn't seem to happen. I think because the belt's pinched a bit more, but certainly do with a regular pulley setup. So that's all it is. No, nothing's out of true or anything like that. It's just the memory in the belt still. There we are. We've got one down already. I can get rid of that bit of paper. Okay, so here, let's go. We'll go with this one next. So, hi Colwin. Enjoying the sessions. About sanding bowls here. So, question, when hand sanding bowls using mesh or paper. I keep getting bands around the outside of the bowl which are really difficult to get rid of. Any tips on how to prevent this from happening? I would say probably what's happening there is, and you usually get it from the first couple of grades, I would say what's happening there is you're not physically moving the paper around the piece enough. If you hold the paper in one place for too long, you're holding those individual pieces of grit in one place for too long. So you do get sort of little tram lines. So I would move around a little bit quicker. But if you've seen me do any bowls in here before, you'll see how I alternate between hand sanding and rotary sanders as well. So rotary sanders, those little devices where they're just on a bearing, and as you touch the bowl, the actual bearing rotates, so you get a swirl as opposed to that straight line around the bowl, and that really helps. Now I found that just gets rid of all those final little signs of sanding marks, and you'll, like I say, generally those marks are coming from the first couple of grades, generally 100, 150, that sort of thing. So if you can go 100, 150 and then alternate with a rotary sander, say of 180, move on to a 240, then another rotary sand, and keep going like that to the final grade, you won't have any marks left. You make sure, stop each time you sand it, just to make sure that you've got rid of the previous sanding marks. Really quite important. Not all timbers can be treated the same. Ash, oak, those sorts of things, you'll get rid of marks ever so quickly and easily. When it comes to exotics, then, or things like sycamore even, walnut, they really hold a scratch for a long time. So you need to go through more levels, more layers of abrasive, more grades as it were. So yeah, try that. Give that a go, and I think you'll find that should be a massive help. So what size holes, oh here we are from Chris Sullivan. What size holes would you drill to use the 3 sizes of Axminster wood turning screw chucks? That's a really good question. I can answer it specifically, however, you may need to vary them slightly, and I'll tell you why. So let's go. So big one, if we're looking at the big screw chuck, so might need to come in a bit closer for this thing. So if we're talking about the biggest screw on the screw chucks, that's that one. So what we're looking at here is the solid center, okay? Not the threads, but the solid center. So we're specifying 8mm drill bit for that, okay? and then we'll go down through the screw sizes. So 8mm for the big one, middle size 6.35 if you can find a 6.35 drill bit, and then 4mm. All right, for that 6.35, just go 6.5, and then the smallest one of 4mm. Now that's okay. So if you're turning an ash bowl, an elm bowl, beech, that sort of thing, absolutely fine, no problem at all. However, you start messing around with really, really dense materials, then you're going to struggle with that. You physically won't screw the chucks in. So you might have to put a 0.5 on all of those sizes. But it's one of those things you're going to have to test to find out. But I would recommend on very hard timbers, pop in like I say, just a 0.5 and you'll probably get there. Okay, so as you have made a smoker, how about turning a Christmas tree from you to demo how to use the Skew spindle gouge? We will, Chris, same person, Chris Sutherland, been here from the very start. Yeah, we will. I'm always a bit nervous this time of year talking about Christmas. Not for me, but for people turning off, because there's the 10% of us, Chris, that love it, but then there's the rest of them. Rather talk about Christmas nearer the time. We'll do something in a minute. We'll do something in a minute. But yes, let's wait until September. Even that's too early for a lot of people. We'll wait until September. We'll do it then, properly anyway. I've got some really good Christmas projects for you, but I'm waiting just a little bit. All right, let's get this heat wave out of the way first. Okay, so, can you put spirit stains in the gravity airbrush? In a gravity airbrush, as the one I've seen says it's for water-based products because they have O-rings. Any look on finding out if Axminster's dual action gravity airbrush, as the SP50 says it's a single action. Well, you're dead right. The SP30 is a single action gravity fed airbrush. The SP35, and at the moment we don't do the SP35, but the maker does an SP35. That's a dual action gravity. We're only doing at the moment the 30. If you want a dual action, you will have to go to a suction fed one from Axminster, okay, and they will be the Spraycraft ones. In terms of spirit based, I've used all of these for probably getting on now. I've been into airbrushing in around about 8 or 9 years. Well, no, probably a bit longer than that, and I've never had an issue putting the chestnut spirit stains through any airbrush. And I've told you before, you know, I leave them in those airbrushes. Probably now I'm getting on the last batch, about 8 months the stain's been in it without a clean. So I can only talk from my experience. I've not had a single problem at all with chestnut spirit wood stain in the airbrushes. Okay, that's that one. Right, Finn, remind me, we're going to do a little Christmas tree before we finish for Chris. Or a few other bits and bobs. Right, here we go. Just
a quick question.
Yes.
We've got one here. Should you put sanding sealer on before Danish oil?
No, I don't. No. The thing with oils, they need to penetrate. So they soak into the timber, give the timber life back. Now, I found that with any oil. So what I tend to do, put the oil on, let the grain rise, so literally a minute, and then start sanding very slowly, because the oil is still going to be wet, with a very fine abrasive. Wait until that starts to dry and drag, then up the speed a little bit, burnish hard with shavings, get some heat in there, and then buff with a rag. Now give that an hour, you'll have to re-buff it or re-burnish it again. But what's happening is as you're wet sanding with the fine abrasive, those fibres are coming up and you're taking them off. So instead of sealing those fibres in, you're losing them altogether. It's like wet sanding water. You're going to take them away. So that's how I treat all oil, whether it's food safe, whether it's finishing, Danish, all of those oils I treat in the same way. Apply, sand back, burnish, buff, wait an hour, redo it. Okay, 2 or 3 coats, and it's going to start coming up really, really shiny. Get to sort of 8, 9 coats, you've always got a glass French polish like finish. So that was my advice there. Yes, Ben.
Yes, we've got another one. Could you use a SK114 chuck on a lathe with a 1 HP motor, like the Coronet,
Yep.
Harold, or is it the SK100 more suitable?
You're in that really. You're in that borderline. 1 horsepower should be fine with it. No problem at all. I would, yeah, you're right in the middle. Either would work. The weight of the SK114 isn't so much more substantial to give a 1 horsepower motor any problems. Certainly the bowl blanks you're putting on there are going to be much bigger and much heavier than the chuck. So no, I think you'll be fine, absolutely fine. So you go with whichever one you prefer. If you want bigger capacity and you feel the 1 horsepower can cope, then go for the bigger one. But if you're happy with the 100, the smaller 100, then go for it. The only thing I would say, if you're trying to put bigger pieces, so you're going for a 114 to put bigger pieces on, then you've got to think about nursing the cuts. If you try and make a big cut with a 1/2 inch bowl gouge on a 1 horsepower lathe, you'll stop it. So go for a 3/8 gouge, take more cuts and be gentle, nurse the lathe along. Okay, if it starts to slow or starts to cut out completely, you're taking too heavy a cut. So go down either bowl size or your physicality on the bowl gouge. Okay.
Yeah, got another one. Do you use paint primer prior to acrylic paint on your project?
It depends on what the project is. So if, for instance, I'm doing a real heavy decoration. Let's say, for instance, I'm doing the, sorry, come back around there again. Let's say, for instance, we're doing things like the fishing lures. Always white primer first, and then it gives me a nice canvas to put the colour onto. The nutcrackers I do sometimes on the nutcrackers, on my German nutcrackers, because they're heavily coloured. But a lot of the time, what we're trying to do with colour is enhance the timber. So rather than make it opaque, make it transparent so you can see through it. But yeah, anything with a heavy embellishment, like that sort of thing where I'm covering the wood completely, then yeah, go for the primer. It really works.
And on the smokers?
No, because the smokers I found, I want to see the grain through them, so it's transparent again. I haven't got any to hand here, but I want to be able to see that lovely lime coming through. And that's you'll find that very traditional a lot of the time to German smokers. Not so much with nutcrackers, and I don't really know the reason for that. They seem to be a little bit more garish, a little bit more bright, where the smokers seem to be a little bit more muted. So transparent colours on my smokers and primary colours, big bold primary opaque colours on the nutcrackers. All right, to go, Finn? Yeah, cool. Does it annoy me when I see wood turners put a blank onto the lathe with the lathe running? It doesn't annoy me at all. Depends on the person that's doing it. If be honest here now, you know me, I'm a preacher of health and safety all the time. When you see a very skilled production turner turning at high speed on a lathe, if it's small pieces, you'll very seldom see them turn the lathe off. You know what they're doing? Absolutely, for them, absolutely safe. If I'm doing bowl stoppers, things like that, bottle openers, that sort of thing, the lathe stays on. I'm using friction drive, so on release of the tailstock handle, everything stops. That's a speed thing. Most turners aren't in it for speed and don't have that skill level for speed either, and so I would definitely not recommend leaving the lathe on. Unfortunately, it's not a black and white issue, this one, where people are turning at speed and making a living from it. They're not going to turn the lathe off. Saying that, big pieces, absolutely, all the time. We don't want things flying across the room, but small, tiny pieces that it's safe to do so, and the skill level's there, then fine. So no, I mean, if I saw a beginner doing it, yeah, I'd be over there straight away and telling them to hang on a minute, slow down, turn the machine off, then then take your piece out of the lathe. But no, it doesn't annoy me. Depends on your situation.
You're 20 minutes in.
20 minutes, nice one. Okay, loving the videos. What's the best startup lathe, chuck, accessories? Oh my goodness. Startup bundle lathe, chucks and accessories. It's a really, really good question. Depends on an awful lot of things. Me and Finn actually done a video 5 weeks ago now, I think. We were outside and we went over a little bit of starting up. On Thursday of this week, I'll be shooting a introduction to turning video, which goes over exactly that, what to look for when you start to look at a lathe, the anatomy of the lathe, variable speed, all those different things that you might not be sure of. So that's going to be out there very, very soon. It's being shot on Thursday, like I said. But just quickly, for the moment, there's certain things that you're going to need. Obviously the lathe is the main one. Really, you need a chuck, you need your lathe tools, and you need a way of sharpening those tools as well. So, you know, to start with, it can feel like it's a really expensive hobby, but once you've got all of those, it's down to timber and time. That's the basic thing. So I've got a couple of part numbers here for you, just to look at. Go to the website, have a look at them, see what you think. And these are my two favourites of the craft range. And certainly if you're starting out, I would say most people generally, if they're starting out, are going to go to the craft range of machinery rather than trade or industrial, purely because of price, you know. That's probably the main thing. And the craft range, the two machines, so they're 370, and again, don't get confused by these numbers, AC 370WL. Axminster Craft, 370mm bowl capacity, wood turning lathe. It's a very, very easy thing to understand, that one. That one's there, it's about £430. Its part number's 105116. And that one is a floor standing big machine. It's about 1100mm between centres. And it's a proper floor standing machine. It has a mechanical variable speed, so you move a lever and that changes the speed and the torque for you. So it's the best of both worlds, to be quite honest. Now, I used one of those for a long, long time in my workshop to do all my production turning. It's a great machine, you know, and certainly capacities there as well. 1 horsepower, that one. And then we go, if space is a bit of an issue, but you still want a big, powerful machine, then the AC 355. So we've come down in bulk capacity a little bit, 355. But that one priced at 529, so 529. Part number is 104792. But that's again, it's another horsepower machine, so it's a big bruiser of a machine, but on a compact scales on a bench top. So I would look at those two. Then if you link together, say, a grinder for sharpening tools, I would, we're starting about £50, £55, 105117. Have a look at that one. That's a nice wide grinder on one side and narrow on the other. So I think it's about 40mm and about 20mm wheels. So have a look, that's a good start there. And then certainly for a chuck package, now they're all different thread sizes, but have a look at this as an example. It's a 106867, and that's the Axminster, the SK100, made in Axminster, as all the jaws are as well. But that comes with the chuck, it comes with accessory jaws, C jaws, so what you see me using all the time. Okay, the C jaws, which are those, and then inside those you can use, again, what we've just been talking about, faceplate ring, not faceplate ring, screw chuck, so you get that with it, and the faceplate ring as well. So you get everything for the beginner to start off. That's about 189. So the SK100 starter package, so use that number, like I said, 106867, and that'll give you an idea of what that's all about. Pick the right thread size for your lathe, and the two lathes I mentioned have different thread sizes. One's an 1'8" and one is a 33 with 3.5. It's explained on the website, so don't worry, and if you have any problems, give us a message back, alright? And then finally some tools. Now a great starter set. Now we work in collab with Crown Tools for this one. So the Axminster Craft Tool Set. So that's 6 tools, 99 quid. And it has everything that I've been using. So the bowl gouge, the skew chisel, parting tool, round nose scraper, spindle gouge. There's one of roughing gouge. So it has all those in it. Its part number is 106153. Like I say, it's made by Crown, high speed steel, great quality. We worked together with them to get the shapes just right, the flutes, all those things. So we wanted a set that we can say UK made, and still at that affordable price for the craft user. Like I say, £99. So have a look at all those little bits. Lots of information there. Have a look at all those little bits, but keep asking questions if you're getting stuck. Yes, Vin?
Someone was just asking, what is the smallest faceplates that they can get?
Smallest faceplates you can get, depending on your thread size. So you can get for a TO1, so 3/4 16. I believe you can get a 50mm steel, and I think, and this is only a think without looking at the catalogue too long, I think you can get it for the inch 8 as well. Failing that, you can get the 75mm, the 3-inch, available on all thread sizes, or common thread sizes. But we also do a mini faceplate that's intended for the multi-head. And that mini faceplate's around about 35mm in diameter. Now that can be held in a chuck as long as you've got tailstock support, but there's an option. But yeah, there's a 50mm, used to be available for 3/4 16 and inch 8. I'd have to double check that. I'll check that in a minute. Alright.
Yep, we got just another one here. They were just saying their SK114 chuck has been leaking grease out of the chuck keyholes from new. Any advice to prevent that?
Yeah, no, don't worry about it. It's from new. They really pack. It's graphite grease used inside. They really pack it. It will stop very soon. Maybe just as long as you haven't got anything that's important hung up, just turn the lathe on and just let it run just for a few minutes. And then give it a wipe over at the end. It's only in the keyways. It's graphite grease. It won't all drain out or anything like that, so don't worry. I know it can be a little bit disconcerting to begin with, but it's just the being over cautious. That's all. All right. So yeah, not a problem, that one. All right. Okay, I'm just going to put a bit of timber on the lathe now, just to explain this next one. So this is a bowl blank of ash. So our next question here, when flattening the face of a bowl blank, is it best to go from centre to outside edge or outside edge in? So always, when we're doing this, if you look at the orientation of that piece of timber, then just come around slightly just to look there. Thank you. So if you can see how this tree was growing, so this pale section here is the sap of the tree, so the outside of the tree. So when it was growing, and this was a big old tree, the center was here somewhere. Okay, so the round, it was probably a good 3-footer, 4-footer, something like that. The sap, the fresh growth here. So the grain's running down. So here and here is end grain. If you start cutting that way, you get a lot of tearing and really, the timber really fights you. So always going to come from center out when I'm doing this, and also the same when we're shaping as well. Okay, shaping the outside of that bowl, we're going to come towards my left, toward the headstock. Okay, the opposite applies to when you're shaping the inside. Hollowing out the inside, you'll be cutting down toward the center, not cutting out. Okay.
Just a couple quick ones here quickly. Do the Axminster belts fit Pro Edge?
Yes, they do.
Yeah?
Yes, they do. They're both the same size, 50 by 7. What did I say earlier? 785. 50 by 785. Yes, they do.
And just another quick one. What's your favourite size signature skew?
My favourite size is the smallest one. The most popular size is the largest one. So my favourite size is that one. Okay, it's a little 12mm because a lot of my projects are smaller pieces. So the 12mm by far is my favourite. Like I say, most popular is the largest. Okay, let's just make a couple of cuts for that one. Let's make some shavings at least. How long have we been, Finn?
Half an hour in.
Half an hour.
And just another quick question.
Yeah.
So you was just saying, going to buy a speed sizer, how do you tell the difference between the difference with the jaws, AB, etc.?
So on the speed sizer itself, everything is listed. Is that all right? So you've got internal, external, and then we've got the actual letters to correspond to the jaws here. Okay, so external C jaw would be that hole. Let me get something to point with rather than my big fat fingers. External C jaw, there's the measurement from there to center. And internal C jaw there. So obviously internal C is going to be smaller, okay, than that measurement. So if you're using dividers, you just measure from center to your hole and away you go. All right. Or if you want to use that basically as a scribe, or like a compass, pop your pencil in there and around with a bradawl in the middle. All right. All jaws, if you're buying jaws, they're numbered, they say what they are, whether they're A, B, C and so on. Right, let's just do a couple of quick cuts in there. Can you see that all right, Finn, or do I need light?
No, that's fine.
That's fine. So, yeah, if we're going to cut, let's turn the lathe speed down to 0. So I'm going to cut from that point to the outer edge using the bottom of the bowl gouge. So we'll do that, just make a couple of cuts a minute. I'm going to show you the difference between the two. So we'll do it nice and slowly. So at the moment it's rough edge, so if I just pop the bevel on, you can see it's bouncing all over the place. So what I'm going to do is just use that section, alright, that section, it's the bottom edge of the bowl gouge, and I'm just going to very gently just drag that centre. So from centre to outside edge, don't stop when you get to the edge, just keep going as if that edge weren't there. Okay, now I'll show you, we haven't got to full flat yet because we're hitting the high spots. With the high spots there, this is still low, so I need to make another cut to get rid of that. Don't worry about breakout either, because you're not going to get breakout at this point. You get breakout if you cut that way, not if you come this way. This is supported grain. So now I'm going to go up a little bit faster, and we'll do the same thing. Right off the edge. Okay. Now, if you're cutting that way, I'm cutting into supported into end grain, and it's a lot tougher. You're going to really struggle. Most of the time, you'll get bevel bounce going on. All right, really, really hard. All right. So cut the friendly side grain, inside to outside edge. There we go. Right, let's answer that one for you. So that was just cutting the friendly side grain. It's only a pull cut. Well, I say it's only a pull cut. A pull cut's a roughing cut. It's not a finishing cut. You wouldn't do that to finish because it's not a clean enough finish. But it's certainly a roughing cut. Okay, hi. Where are we? New to turning, recommend chisel set. Can't really push the boat out at the moment for a grinding system too. Right, okay, no problem. You're gonna have to sharpen your chisels at one point. I would still recommend that craft turning tool set. If that's still too much, then go for individual. The Axminster individual tools, you could probably half that amount and just go for maybe 3 tools. I would certainly go for a roughing gouge, go for a bowl gouge, and a skew chisel to start with. The bowl gouge and the skew can get you most of the way. But yeah, go for those. 106, 153 is the craft turning tool set though. That would be my recommendation. And just invest in a little diamond file just for the minute until you can afford a sharpening system. A little diamond file. Okay, and just keep the edge keen. Keep it nice and sharp with one of those. So you're hand sharpening. At some point you will have to regrind. So you know, sooner or later you're going to have to get some sort of sharpening system.
We got one here from Dave. He's just saying he's currently making some square bowls. Should he cut it in the same way as you've just done there?
Square bowls are a little bit different. So yeah, you've got to be fairly careful with breakout on square bowls. So that would be one of the only times that I cut the other direction. Unfortunately, it's a little bit harder, but it certainly on the outside that will help you a little bit. My first ever turning related black eye was turning square bowls one Monday morning. I didn't retighten the chuck and it hit me right on the bridge of the nose. So be careful. Make sure that chuck is nice and tight. Hi lads, how about a few stair finials? Maybe some unusual ones ideal for a 50-minute video. Well, we're not going to do a 50-minute video today, but that's certainly a good idea for the future. We'll do a quick one here. So little stair caps, or finial caps. We're getting a long way into the questions now, so that's a good one. Whilst I'm setting up, I'll answer a question here from Callum. No, that's that question that we're just doing.
Just
so
quickly,
from,
a quick one.
Go on.
I got one from David Martin, just asking, what do you do with the chip sweepings when they contain so floor sweepings and wood like you, not suitable for animal bedding and stuff?
Right, so shavings. Now I've got two sorts of shavings. Unfortunately, epoxy shavings. So epoxy shavings aren't obviously timber, so they're not going to compost down. It's a difficult one for those. What I generally do with all epoxy shavings is write what it is and give it to the recycling people. At the moment, I have no idea whether they can recycle epoxy, but once in its solid state, it is a type of plastic, I believe. So recycling is the way to go with that one. In your normal shavings, I'll be honest, we've got a massive garden here and we compost it all. You use it to keep for mulch, just to keep weeds down in the at the bottom of the garden, and compost it. You're right, it's not good for animals. It's got too much dust in. When you buy shavings for animal bedding, it's vacuumed dust, vacuum shaving. So the dust, the fine particles, are taken out. So no, not really that good. Funny, I was just given a whole bag full to a friend of mine who's making a compost toilet. So there we are, compost toilet. I've got my garden. That'd be the best way for it.
Someone was just asking if the end grain of bowl blanks are sealed with molten paraffin wax.
Yes, paraffin wax in most cases, and certainly that bowl blank there. Okay, that's paraffin wax, so the same sort of stuff that you get on your candles. Okay, but you can. There is a material, a liquid out there called N-Seal. That's made by Chestnut. That's a very good solution. That's like a latex type material. PVA. If there's any builders watching, you know the PVA that you put in your cement and in the mortar. That's the same sort of thing. Put that on the outside of the bowls. Perfect. Old glue. The old pots of paint at the end of the shed. You know, those ones that are drying up. Use those just to paint around the end grain. Anything to seal the grain works. I thought you were hovering on with another question. Okay, well there's another question here I've got from Clive. How can you stabilise wood? Do you need pressure or vacuum vessel? What chemicals are most effective? So I'm into more pressure treating resin because I'm doing bigger pieces. If you want to make pen blanks and you're using things like corn cobs and very soft timbers and you need to stabilize them, so you need to make the resin soak in, you use a different type of resin. The one that I know of is cactus juice. Okay, and that's how, look online, you'll see that out there. And that's done under vacuum. So basically what you're doing, you're taking all the air out, and that means that then the timber or the corn cobs are absorbing all of that resin. It's a thinner resin and it goes in and completely stabilizes and hardens the timber. What I'm doing is shrinking bubbles with pressure, allowing all the bubbles to disappear out of eyesight, so the resin then takes up all of those voids. That's the difference between pressure and a vacuum. Okay. Pressure generally for bigger pieces, vacuum on your smaller ones. Okay, so we're going to do just a very quick staircase cap or finial top, and then we'll move on to the last few questions. Okay, do you want to, you see all right there, Finn, or do you want to come in?
A bit closer.
So I'm going to go quite quick to start with. We're going to rough down with a roughing gouge.
Just another quick one. Can you melt down acrylic shavings and recast them?
No. Once they've had the hardener and the resin together, that is it. They cannot be re-liquefied, whatever the word is. All right. It is a chemical reaction rather than a heat-based one. So just roughing down to a cylinder. These are actually quite nice little demonstration pieces. Demonstrated this before at Rycote with the Furniture College, and it went down really well because architectural turning is where I sort of started in life, really. Staircase, spindles, that sort of stuff. So what I've done, I've roughed down. As anybody's just starting out and turning here, tool presentation is a massive issue, massive thing to start you off. Rough and gouge, tool rest below centre, and handle nice and low. Now I'm going to get the tool rest high, and where those corners once were, that created a void, so tool rest can be moved back in. Skew chisel's going to clean that surface up for us, and I'm going to present the skew at 45. Can we come in a little bit higher and down on the workpiece fin? So yeah, just wind him up a bit, just so they can see. Lovely. And it's important here, we've got to rub the bevel of the timber first, then raise the handle before we move. Got to have bevel and the cutting edge moving together. I'll come your way so you can see. Bevel supports the cut, keeps everything nice and clean. So if I want to do, let's do a staircase finial top. It's going to have a tenon on it, so let's cut a tenon in. I have no particular size on this one, so we'll just do it. We'll just do down to there. This is a beading and parting tool. So beading parts, we've done a nice little tenon. So now let's go for, I don't know what shape we're doing. Oh, I know what we're doing. Let's go for, so we'll make a fillet. So I'm starting with a V cut using the tip of the skew. So a fillet is the flat section. Then we'll do a half bead here. We'll also do another half bead down the bottom. So using the tip of the skew to push that bead all the way down. So nice deep cut there. Now I'm going to go to a bowl gouge now because I tend to prefer the bowl gouge over a spindle. So to do that I'm away from the skew, so I'm going to drop the tool rest back down again. And we're just going to take some roughing cuts first. And when you're doing a cove like this, you want to really give it some depth. When you've got some nice curves going on, it'll be really pleasing to the eye. Okay, so we'll round that over. Let's go with a spindle. In fact, no, let's just skew that over to start with. So I'm going to use the heel of the skew to round over. So this is one of the nice big German skews. Nice shape to that one, nice and light. So round him over, right down to the bottom of that V cut. There we are. What should we do on the top? Let's do a little finial top. So back with the bowl gouge on this one. In fact, I'm just going to sharpen that one for you. So I've got my, you can't see this, but I've got a slow speed grinder over here. I'm setting up in the format jig. Right, back to it. So we're going to do a nice little, almost like an OG really. We're just roughing out. Let's get a bit of speed on this one.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
How do you support under the underside of a large vase turned out of a log while turning out of centre?
You're gonna have to read that out to me again. I didn't quite get it.
Sorry, yeah, okay. So how do you support the underside of a large vase turned out of a log while turning out centre?
When turning the centre out. Now there are things available out there which basically work like a steady. So if you're spindle turning, you've seen the steadies where they have 3 wheels. There's also loads of PDFs out there for you to make your own. It's not going to be cheap to get a steady that big, but they are out there. So basically a steady. If your lathe isn't big enough to take the pot size that you want, then that's going to be your only action, or your only way to get over the problem. Alright? Big steadies. Paul Howard does one for that exact thing, for making large pots. So I'm just taking this down a little bit. I'm not going to finish this off, but just give you an idea. So this will be a nice little bead on the top, making sure that you can take away the hole left by the tailstock centre. That means that the finial now needs to come down a little bit smaller. There we go. And I think we're nearly there. All we're going to do now, go to my favourite Skew, round over the tops of these 2 half beads. And that would be the first finial done. They're great fun to play around with, finials, because you can let your sort of design eye go crazy, really. But that's one. Let's take them off. Thinner. Just pan back a little bit. We'll stand that one up there. Obviously you need to remove the top. They got a nice tenon down here to grip, so you can do that. Okay, how long have we been, Finn?
So you're 50 minutes in.
50 minutes in, so a bit of time. Right, here we go. This is one from Martin. So what's the difference between chestnut gilt cream and Hampshire sheen embellishing wax? There is a difference between gilt creams and embellishing waxes. The main difference is what they're intended for. So gilt creams are a thicker paste cream intended for gilding, so over a Fontenay base, that sort of thing. So it's a denser, more opaque material. So for gilding is the intention, you know, but we as woodturners tend to use them as well. So it's a thicker material. You think gilding, that's the sort of job that it's used for, really, and we use it to embellish. Hampshire sheen embellishing waxes, they tend to be so they're a little bit more transparent, and they're designed to pick out the grain. So enhance the grain of the timber. So for best results, I've certainly found to use them over a heavy grained timber or over dye, that sort of thing, to pick out the grain, or a little bit like liming. When you see something that's been limed, that's what the embellishing waxes do. They do the same sort of thing. They pick out all that lovely detail and really emphasize it. So those are the two differences. Yeah, I suppose you could use them similar jobs, but they wouldn't be as effective. They have their own sort of little areas. So yeah, so that's that one. How do you get the jaws out? How do you get the jaws out of an SK100? Now it depends when you bought it, Keith. This is a question from Keith. So there's my SK100. At the moment it's got my jaws for making pendants in, and anything. If you've just bought the chuck, what you probably have in it is one of the safety jaws with the screw in it, so it's stopping you from just staking them straight out. So what you'd have to do there is go in through this side, okay, and undo the little grub screw that's inside, and you should have a little Allen key to do that. Once you've taken that screw out, then you can unwind your jaws all the way. Like mine doesn't have one in it, it's an older chuck. I can do this without having to do that. Eventually they won't go any further and they'll just pop out. So it depends on the age. If it's a very new chuck, then undo the screw. If it's not, then they should just come out automatically once you've gone far enough. Okay, I'll do that one in a minute. That needs to go back in a particular order now. So
we've got a quick question, and you might have to excuse my pronunciation, but can you use a carnauba wax over airbrushing?
Probably not. I've never tried it. The issue would be carnauba wax is very hard, and so you more than likely, and doesn't matter what form you get it in. So there are 3 different forms of carnauba there. So I've got the hard stick wax. I think that's just that one. I've got the pure carnauba there, and they've got the Liberon beeswax and Woodturning stick. So it's carnauba and beeswax. They're really hard. So that just chips, it doesn't dent, it chips. And so if you start rubbing that over the top of a piece that's been airbrushed, you'll probably take the paint off. To be honest, it'll scratch it. Even if you put it on a buffing wheel, I think it'd be too aggressive. Over airbrush materials, I tend to either epoxy them or spray lacquer them. Acrylic spray lacquer over the top works for me. That's what I've always done with those. So yes, all right, Finn?
Yep.
So I've got one more. So one more. This is from a very good friend of mine. This is from Joel. Joel and I go back a fair way. Joel was just asking what gloves is my preference, so I don't lose the sense of touch when I'm working with the material. Well, airbrushing, you've got to be fairly careful with airbrushing, whether you use latex or whether you use nitrile gloves, I think they're called. Some people can be allergic to latex. Good old marigold always helps if you're unsure. Nick the Wise marigolds, that'll help. But it doesn't really matter. I don't like wearing gloves on the lathe. I've said this before, the gloves catch terrifically well, and then they'll take your hand away with them as well. So do be really, really careful. So I hope that's answered your question, John. Any more questions, Finn? I think, Chris, I haven't got to the Christmas trees, unfortunately, so we are going to have to wait until September. So guys, that's it for today. I think we've used up all our time. Don't forget, have a look and stop by Craig's live demo tomorrow, or questions and answers. Ask him anything to do with woodworking. He's there ready to answer all your questions. Craig's actually going to be helping me on Thursday. So join me on Thursday, 4 o'clock in my workshop. We're going to be revisiting one of the very early live sessions that we've done, and that's making apples and pears. So it's basically the use of jam chucks or friction chucks. So until then, guys, happy turning, enjoy yourself. See me on Thursday, 4 o'clock, same time, same place, my workshop. Bye-bye.